Kid by the Side of the Road by SAVIN. We've all been bystanders watching events go by, not understanding their true meaning. Continued on page 54. Chapter 3. Q Sentinel's team versus Osiris 17 teams. I want to talk about the revelations coming soon as we approach 3 years since the Q team started posting. It began at the end of October in 2017, at the end of October in 2017, and is worth exploring what this Q project is all about. The Q team's military intelligence communication project involves messages posted on an anonymous chat board. Those on the board besides Q are known as anons, anonymous posters or commenters. What is the core of the Q project and why use a Q? Out of all the possible letters, why are Q posts so mysterious and secretive? From the outset, when people spoke of Q as an individual, I would correct them and identify the Q members as a team. Frequently, people get bogged down trying to determine their identity, constantly hitting the Q team with questions and statements like, "Who is this Q guy? He has to reveal himself. He has to come out right now and tell us who he is, because this is ridiculous. Who is Q Group? How can they how come they don't just come out in the open, say who they are, and present the information? Why do they have to be so secretive? Nobody should be hiding like that." And who is pushing hardest? Of course, it's the fake media because they want to be able to attack the Q project more directly. They constantly target anyone opposed to the false narrative, which they push every day. They want to slam those patriots against the wall and silence them. The other countermeasure they will certainly employ is to publicly ridicule all family members of the Q team for being a part of this exposure project. That's why the deep staters in this battle want to know who Q is. As far as the way Q operates, their current procedures allow this information dissemination project to have a level of plausible denial, or PD, which is handy during covert operations. Here's an example of how they can help even at the highest level. Some might say the Q communications seem as though they are coming from President T, and even have to be coming from the president because no one else would have the authority to release such detailed and high level information without his involvement or permission. But since President T hasn't admitted it, that's PD, or plausible denial. Without the president's admission that he is involved with the Q project, it is difficult for the media because they can't vet the source to attack him on the politics and details. And speaking of this Q team communications operation, why do they use a Q? While there is plausible deniability about its meaning, it is interesting that when looking down on President John F. Kennedy's gravesite from above, you will see that someone chose to make that landscape into the form of a Q. Did someone choose to brand and seal that gravesite using their Q witchcraft? And while we are told the flame place there is the eternal flame, many believe it's more accurately viewed as a Promethean flame, just like that which was placed on Princess Diana's gravesite years later. Part of Q Post 783 says, "Rest in peace, JFK, we will succeed." So this is about the Q team versus their Q magic. Many cabal conspirators and saboteurs remain in our government throughout changing presidential administrations. These players are over and above the regular GS level, general schedule, or US civil service pay scale. Government employees can normally achieve up to GS 15. Above that are those who get to the Senior Executive Service, or SES. The SES levels used to be called supergrades until the cabal's agent Jimmy Carter created the SES in 1978. It is patterned after the English crown's untouchable inner court of bad actors called the Privy Council. Before the Privy Council, this role for the globalists was filled by Freemasons for continuity in government and in case of national emergencies, these SES people at the highest level of our government. I'm aware. At the highest level of our government, and where did you think I got this book? I won it from the man. Privy Council before the Privy Council. This role for the globalists, and I encourage everyone else to get it and read and do the same exact thing. Excuse me. The SES levels used to be called supergrades until the cabal's agent Jimmy Carter created the SES in 1978. It is patterned after the English crown's untouchable inner court of bad actors called the Privy Council. Before the Privy Council, this role for the globalists was filled by Freemasons for continuity in government and in case of national emergencies. These SES people are at the highest level of our government, hold their positions no matter the party in power. They are the deep state core that is in control behind the scenes. Again, it's the inner circle protecting the cabal's interests, just as the Privy Council does for the English crown, since being set up in 1708. In fact, our SES has been infiltrated with a large number of crown agents who have been sifted in over time. As far as the crowd behind that assassination of President Kennedy, the finger seems to point to the predecessors of our SES supergrades back then. Kennedy was triangulated on and gunned down because he was trying to go after the hidden hand that has been constantly working to control us as people, as a people. You see, they weren't just trying to bring a president under their thumb. People keep getting that wrong. Most focus on the fact that this group of murderers eliminated President Kennedy because his actions were messing with their plans. But that's not the full picture of why this happened. The cabal hit us as a people because we elected this guy who was attempting to do what we wanted done. They couldn't have that and risk us getting control of our country. The guy we elected was asked to help us reign in government and again make it the servant of the people, as opposed to our manager, oppressor, and overlord. His deep state opponents decided he had to go because the American people might start thinking they can run their country, understanding that we have the decision making power and ability to steer our own ship. They did not want the cows running the barnyard. Another interesting aspect of this Q acronym is about it being the 17th letter of the English alphabet, which is also the number associated with Osiris, an ancient Egyptian deity. Like Q, Osiris's number is 17, and he is a focal point for this cult that prominently honors that demonic entity with architecture around the world. One of their most important structures is the Washington Monument, located at the center of Washington, D.C. Just to be clear, according to their satanic thinking, this what they believe, and it doesn't matter whether this is what they believe, and it doesn't matter whether we believe it or not. I'm just clarifying for you what they believe. By legend, the 17th day of the month was the day of Osiris's death and resurrection. It was when his brother Set hacked Osiris to pieces, killing him to eliminate Osiris. whom Set believed was extremely evil. Now, it gets even more graphic, so I'm sorry, but this is what they believe. The story goes that their mother, Isis, immediately upon hearing this, went out to recover the pieces of her son's butchered body. She found all his body parts except his penis. So she reassembled what she had of the corpse before fashioning a penis out of stone, then somehow had sex with it, and later birthed a child she named Horus. Again, all these characters are the ancient Egyptian occult deities that we now find residing in Washington, D.C., and over America with our space station conveniently named ISIS. Just knowing that, can you see how this is their religion that they've emblazoned on the entire landscape of our nation's capital? And those religious beliefs revolve around a child who was born through a death ritual ceremony and then became one of the gods they worship. Why would their beliefs be based on death? As the Bible tells us, those who hate God love death. Q drop 3594, which includes Ephesians 6:10 through 17, explains our need to put on the full armor of God because we battle against principalities and powers of darkness in high places. That is absolutely true. This is a spiritual battle about whether we follow a heavenly course or a hellish one. So both the Q Project and Osiris are nods to the number 17, but we, the Patriots, are seeking to reverse their magic by unwinding the spells that have been cast on us and the country. We're going back to the core and re-owning the numbers from a biblical, godly, and divine perspective, held by Christians, the Jewish people, and Muslims who affirm this part of the Old Testament. Five is the number of God's grace. But five means something different to this deep state cult that has rooted itself inside our government, the dark state that rules and controls us. And through us, they have strong armed much of the world. For those occult practitioners, five is not God's number of grace. It is the number of defense and death to enemies. That's why our Pentagon has five sides. So, these numbers like 5 and 17 have meaning. If we're going to own the numbers back, it starts with 17, or Q, which is their most important number because of Osiris's supposed death and resurrection on the 17th. Among other similar obelisks they have placed worldwide, DC is built around one of their Osiris phallic symbols, the Washington Monument. And if you want to say it looks like a Q, it's also the shape they made President Kennedy's gravesite. They were putting their stamp like a boot print on JFK's body. They constructed a Q over the presidential victim, which is also meant to represent their victory over all of us. They are laughing at us. Ha ha ha! We did this. Gotcha. However, the Q team and the rest of the Patriots are reversing the spell to own the numbers back. That doesn't mean we are playing their magic game, whether white, black, green, or whatever. All magic is evil, occult, witchcraft, and wizardry. So we aren't playing by their rules. Dark just loses whenever light is present. There is no fight between magicians. Good eliminates evil. This isn't wizard versus wizard. That is their thing, not ours. Now, from a military perspective, when we talk about black magic, mystery science, and secrets, what is arguably the most undercover site in North America? It's Area 51. About that, here's a compelling side note. This past November, Paul Gosar, the US representative from Arizona, put out a tweet that artfully spelled out Area 51 if you read only the first characters going down his 6 sentences. That same day, he posted a long string of messages, a thread, where the first letter of each sentence spelled out Epstein didn't kill himself. That was beautiful. Very apropos to what is happening today. But Gosar was pointing at Area 51, which is the location of deep, dark secrets. Looking at the numbers, this super secret military site was given a numerical name that is 3 times 17, 51. Stamp. Is tough to read it this way. But Gosar was pointing at Area 51, which is the location of deep dark secrets. Looking at the numbers, this super secret military site was given a numerical name that is 3 times 1751. So again, we see the cult stamp on the numbers with 3 times magnification, supposedly being the maximum power of a spell. They believe if you're going to do ritual magic or magic with a K at the end, which is the cute Crowleyan, Aleister Crowley spelling the occult likes, you want to make it 3x magnification to project your spell as hard as possible. They believe Area 51 at 3 times 17, the number they give Osiris, and the 17th letter of the alphabet, which is Q, creates maximum dark magic. Their core occult symbol 17 is so important to them that part of the battle involves the Patriots taking it away and re-owning it because of its significance to them. However, 17 is the Bible's number for victory, and Satan always wants to take it away from God's people. Esther is God's 17th book of the Bible, which is about another of history's plots by Satan to have his human helpers control, dominate, and exterminate God's people. At the last minute, before the occultists of that day could pull off the planned massacre, Esther convinces the king of the plot and the Jewish people gain victory over that evil, including Haman, the king's top aide, who is foisted on his own petard, which he had made to murder Jews. So Satan uses his minions to try owning that number, but it's a victory for God and those who do good for him. Q posts 3685 through 3689, posted by Q on December 15th, 2019, reference a photo of President T's watch that was first posted by Q a couple weeks earlier on December 2nd. The watch shows a time of 1:29 p.m. Both of those messages ask the same question of Q followers. Again, these are anonymous people posting on Q's 8 Aiken chat board, Anons. And that is whether they understand the significance of that specific 1:29 p.m. time marker. After the Q team gave us a picture with that time on the watch, the Anons saw several highly anticipated reports that were each released at precisely 1:29 p.m. The three reports were from the Special Prosecutor John Durham, Attorney General Bill Barr, and Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz. Those included the release of records pertaining to spying requests from Obama administration officials, which are called Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act reports, FISA. They all related to the whole drawn-out impeachment scam effort to go after our elected president. Those three 1:29 p.m. reports exposed and countered the false narrative that Trump supposedly colluded with Russia. Again, each damning report for the deep state came out at that exact time we saw on the watch from Q weeks earlier on December 2nd. Why is that important? It's because our current president's watch shows Washington, D.C. time, which is Eastern Standard Time, and the entirety of the Q project is repeatedly framed around a coup that took place against the American people in 1963. It was when all their efforts to capture and control our populace were consummated in the murder of our president, President John F. Kennedy, JFK. That murder occurred at 12:29 p.m. Dallas, Texas time. At 12:29, the limo carrying President Kennedy and his wife Jackie turned the corner onto Elm Street and proceeded into the pre-designated kill zone. The first shot at the president missed and hit a curb. Subsequent shots hit the president with much discussion over the years since, as to just how many shots were taken at him. The first reports of that shooting occurred a minute later at 12:30 p.m. Dallas time. And here is the relevance. That moment in which Kennedy got shot was 1:29 p.m. Washington, D.C. time. And that translates to 13:29 military time, with no AM or PM needed for a 24-hour clock. A little later, we'll look at how that military time is relevant. So, right there in those December 2019 Q posts, we're really seeing a reference to that hinge moment in the history of our country when the coup was consummated, allowing these globalist players to take power. And they would not lose it from that point forward. With the Reagan administration, we elected someone like T, who is trying to take the country in a different direction than our controllers wanted. As with T, Reagan was not in step with them because of the fact that there was another assassination attempt with the idea that President Reagan's shooting, there was another assassination attempt of our president at that time. Only by the grace of God was it unsuccessful. Many argue with the idea that President Reagan's shooting was a high-level coup attempt. But I believe history will eventually show conclusively that there was a coordinated effort on that day to take another of our presidents out by those not wanting to share control. Are you beginning to understand why there has been the current coup attempt on this president, which began before he even took office? Still, other assassinations have occurred over time, including one referenced in a Q drop from April 8th of 2018. In that communication, the Q team points out successful 2001 campaign, which put Hillary Clinton in the US Senate from New York. It references how July 16th, 1999 was the start date for her campaign because that was the day of a fatal plane accident involving our murdered president's son, John F. Kennedy Jr. Behind the scenes, it was a well-known fact that Kennedy had been consulting friends and potential supporters about his planned run for that seat. The common belief was that he would have won versus Clinton. The Q team has been diligent in tying these references to a reverse of the 1963 coup, unwinding the wizardry and magic from this cult that infests our capital. They are known in some circles as the Brotherhood of the Snake. Most of DC's imagery, street layout, monuments, and buildings have been designed and constructed around themes honoring their snake brotherhood. They are Luciferians who seek to control and use our energies as a people for their purposes in creating their global New World Order. If we continue to blindly go along and cooperate like sheep and slaves, these channelers of the snake will press on, doing their damage all across the earth. Our job is to stomp out and reverse their evil spells that have been cast on America and its citizens, as well as throughout the population of our planet. Waking us up to what they've been doing is the entirety of the Q project. There is no room at this moment in history for the potential of any single point failure, just as is needed for complex aircraft design. The Q team has engineered multiple backup systems. The beauty, intricacy, and simplicity of the Q team project is its success at helping the multitudes of patriots rise and meet together in digital cyberspace for this battle royale. The Q team and its supercomputers have engineered a process with no single point failure. It's the MAGA model. We always beat them on the numbers. The vast majority of us are waking up and showing up at the same virtual times and the same virtual stations. Q post 2556. People awake are what they fear the most. Q post 2994. You awake is their greatest fear. Q post 3409. People united and awake is their biggest fear. In another message from the Q team that came just before those I referenced earlier, Q Post 3684 gives pictures of separate times when Nancy Pelosi, US House Speaker, Hillary Clinton, and President Obama were each giving a speech at our elite armed forces educational institution, West Point Military Academy. In the photos you see, they each happen to give the exact same hand gesture, which we all know as the OK sign. For those of us who understand these cult insiders we battle, they use the OK sign as code for 666, a symbol of the devil worshipping Brotherhood of the Snake. Notice it is the same sort of 666 sign as the Google logo. Which was taken from the divine king sign 666. Google Play is the seal of Satan. And Google GPS is the all-seeing eye of providence. Gmail, Facebook, and Apple's App Store are all tattooed with various Freemason symbols. And how about Cern, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, who built that giant atom smasher in Europe? It's called the Large Hadron Collider and was built for scientific research into particle physics. Like Google's emblem, CERN's logo is also a thinly veiled 666. Over and over, the satanically inspired symbology is used by these globalists for their New World Order projects. These people are positioned in political office and at the head of these governmental agencies because they've pledged their allegiance to Satan. And to help the Luciferian cause, they are placed high up in the media, entertainment industry, and at the top of corporations. The Q post about them flashing the OK signs is intended to get us informed so that we will be alert and observant to their use of subtle frat boy hand codes and gestures, as well as numbers which they adeptly flash to reinforce their messaging. If we go back one more Q post to 3683, it shows a repeated theme from the Q project, urging us to adhere to this prompting from the Bible's book of Ephesians. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. This is what we must do against the strategies of those like this snake brotherhood, who have been able to convert our life energies for their purposes. When you pay income taxes, you're supporting all of these different nefarious schemes they've put in place against you. You are supporting their efforts to bring us under their global world order. They are stealing your life energy for their great work. We should support our country and work together, but not in fulfillment of this cabal's evil intentions. We want to put out our energy toward those efforts that create positive societal results. That is what this national moment is about, with President T and the Q team working to restore that opportunity for us. You and I should also be putting our energies toward this monumental effort needed to counter these deeply entrenched globalists. Obviously, it is not a one person job. Obviously, it is not a one person job. There is no magic pill or superhuman individual that is going to return control to the people. This will take a group effort, with all of us required to be on point, paying attention, and doing our part for this restoration. The Q project is the catalyst around which this new digital army is being mustered together down through its ranks in preparation to retake our world. They only started posting as Q in late 2017, but the roots go all the way back to that sickeningly successful coup that happened November 22nd, 1963. On that day, the resistance began in earnest. That heinous public murder carried out to gain tight control of us also lit a fire under the Patriots' counter coup, both in and out of government. Since that day, unrecognized and tireless supporters of our freedom have worked diligently on our behalf. Many did not make it to see this day, but they all got us to this point where the counter coup is now stronger than ever. Another Q post put out in mid December of 2019, number 3668, helped us understand the B 2 bomber reference given in mid July of the same year. It turned out that the July post alluded to Attorney General Bill Barr, the stealth bomber. We didn't know for sure that the reference was about him until the subsequent December post confirming it. As I tell you a bit about the B 2 bomber and similar stealth vehicles, think of this battle-scarred veteran that was appointed by T and the inundation of evil he signed up to face. If you are the target of an electronically invisible killing machine like these airborne assassins, by the time you hear or see it, it's already too late to save yourself. The payload will have already been released well before you know about it, and the plane is headed for home. At that point, the Moab, mother of all bombs, is almost at your soon to be decimated location. And those bombs follow a laser light guided trajectory to their target. Nothing can stop the explosions that will happen. The massive destruction to come is a done deal. With that description, you can better understand what the Q team meant when they called Bill Barr the B 2 bomber. Again, the first Q post began in late October of 2017. Number 307 from those early messages referenced an Anon who had posted the Lord's Prayer, which is, of course, a passage quoting Jesus in the New Testament. As such, it is recognized by Christians worldwide. But here's something interesting about that. The forgotten books of Eden tell us about the early months and years after Adam and Eve were ejected from the garden. It is a poetic and compelling account that had been handed down over generations and has a fairly similar version of the Lord's Prayer called Adam's Prayer. That prayer predates Jesus by 1,500 to 2,000 years, with the Lord's Prayer being something most of us now know and can probably recite from memory. It would be pretty amazing if Adam's Prayer is an authentic, much earlier version. That post 307 is mirrored by a later post 703, which points to the prayer invoked daily in our nation's Oval Office by President T and his close staff. The president's team prays what they call the JFK prayer. You can go read it for yourself in that Q post. And speaking of prayer, after President T was sworn into office, Melania would not spend even one night in the White House before it was prayerfully cleansed of all the satanic spirits, those evil entities that are the head of this snake cult. This new administration had to have a godly disinfecting ceremony to evict Satan from the American people's house. That satanic mind and its control were kicked out. Just what these Satanists had done to our White House was also accomplished with the original street layout of Washington, D.C. It was set up by the evil conspirators with their little schemes and schematics, all designed to imprint their symbology on our nation's capital. For some background on that, let's talk about what a witch's ceremony entails. They draw the outline of an occult symbol on the ground and then put a circle around that, after which they stand inside the outlined symbol. All this starts a powerful spell by printing, tattooing, and emblazoning these satanic symbols on the structures and projects where they hold the ritual ceremonies. They believe these works of Satan will reverberate and emanate power that grows out from those locations. They aim the focus of these powers into places like the Oval Office and at people like our president in their attempts to have an effect that will reach all across the country. It's a fight for the symbology of markers, a mark, title deed of ownership on our country and our souls. Knowing that their hate for our president makes sense because he is throwing a monkey wrench into the machinery of their Luciferian plans, plots, and schemes. They have only ill will toward any forces for good like our president. New digital soldiers arrive every day to assist as we combat the treasonous bought off and fake news media. These Cainites, descendants of Cain, can't stand the fact that we, the children of Adam, are retaking control of our lives and country, just as the children of Israel did when they left Egypt to be free, slaves no more. Going forward, it will be peaches for us and the pits for them. Getting back to the Q team posts about the full armor of God, if you search through those messages at qmap.pub or qalerts.app, you can enter "put on the full armor of God" to see the phrase has been repeated 13 times over the recent history for the Q operation. As we're closing in on our objective, over and over the Q team has encouraged us to put on the full armor of God. And part of putting on that armor is to acquire the knowledge of who our enemy is so we can face them full on. An interesting aspect about that armor of God in the Bible is that there is no reference to backside protection with it. We don't need to worry about protecting our backs because we're charging head on into them. That's what this is all about. That's what we're doing as a people. Why was it 13 times that Q pointed out God's decree for us to put on that full armor of God? The globalist bloodline families see the rest of us as merely human because we are descendants of only 12 bloodlines stemming from Jacob's 12 sons. They believe they are more than human as 13 bloodline families from Cain, the Cainites. Again, they believe in the numbers, so we are taking them back. Cult numbers like 13 are very important to them. The original count of bloodline families arrayed against all the free and captive people of the world is 13. Way back at our founding, they even worked at achieving 13 colonies that would then become 13 states, which helped their 13 to be printed all over the imagery of our country and currency. They want their special number everywhere as a stamp signifying who they are and how they control us. They really enjoy these numbers. So when we see these Q posts with the military time on the president's watch, 13 hours, 29 minutes, and 11 seconds, the 1300 hours is a message to those bloodline operators who seek to control us. Many accept 29 as being a type of code for the 9/11 World Trade Center takedown by the cabal. 29 has the 9 and then 1 plus 1 equals 2. And there are all sorts of events the 11 seconds goes back to. In 1918, the First World War ended at 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Also, the date when those watch pictures were posted was 56 years. 5 plus 6 equals another 11. After the counter coup began at the time of President Kennedy's assassination, it is us, the digital army, taking back the numbers they rely on. We are capturing back that date when they murdered our president. That start of the counter coup is what we are in the process of completing with President T and the Q team's leadership. Kennedy's murder was on the 22nd of the 11th month. So it was the 11th month, as well as 11 plus 11 being 22, It is our 11-11-11 versus theirs, our 9/11 versus theirs, and our 13 versus theirs. We are at war as we tear down those strongholds of evil, just as the Berlin Wall was torn down piece by piece, as people swinging sledgehammers, showing up to reduce that barrier to rubble. We are going to smash these monsters and their monuments into rubble. As a people, they will not own us anymore, and they will go out to the world and help free those people too. These snake worshippers realize all this, and that's why their venomous actions right now are so strong. They are severely stressed in their efforts to hit back at us. And Q Post 3815 tells us the final outcome for many of these wretched people we are fighting. It will be much like the scorn for the Vichy French. For the Vichy French. They were French citizens who cooperated and aided the Nazis during the German occupation of France in World War II. After the war, they were ostracized by French society. Likewise, during our Revolutionary War, Ben Franklin's own son had to flee to England and France for being on England's side during that war. And we all know about Benedict Arnold, who was George Washington's most trusted general. My screen is going matrixy. Is yours? He collaborated with the Brits, and even after the war was over, he too had to flee to England because he was no longer safe walking the streets here. Q Post 3815 warns us about the traitors in our midst. They refers to the traitors. What happens when people learn the truth? What happens when people wake up? They will not be able to walk down the street. To be continued. Leaving off at the bottom of page 62. My screen has gone matrixy. Kid by the Side of the Road by SAVIN. We've all been bystanders, watching events go by, not understanding their true meaning. Stay tuned. Deep State, get out. You're not welcome here. Goodbye.